Good day, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of The Trip Ahead here on the Josh YouTube channel. It's the week series that we're doing before the season begins. A roller coaster of a season ahead of us, and today we were talking about probably one of the more interesting clubs going into the new season in Crystal Palace, who literally are having a complete rebuild on the pitch, off the pitch, and also in terms of their identity as a football club. So obviously there's a fair bit to get through, and I've got Ali from the Pride of London and TV with me, who he's been on the Duggar Football Channel a few times with myself on a podcast. So I know him very well. I know he knows the stuff about Crystal Palace, and I prefer getting the interview ahead of an up and down season that could be ahead. So Ali, thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I was saying yesterday, I think it would be quite strange for you because I'm actually feeling quite positive. And in our conversations on the World of Football podcast, I was always very negative last season. But there's some positive stuff going on around the club in the summer.
I look forward to the game. And very briefly, we are going to briefly just touch on last season, which we're going to send you down a dark road just to obviously give us a bit of a template to work off. Obviously, I think there isn't much to sum up about last season. You were never really in a relegation battle, really, ever. But you never really were fighting for the top half. Roy Hudson's final season. The cup runs were probably very disappointing. I think there isn't much to last season. I guess just you avoided relegation in a difficult time for football, and I guess that was kind of maybe why Roy Hudson maybe stayed on for that extra bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I think as much as I was negative about the style of play, like most Palace fans, there's a deep respect for what Roy Hodgson did in taking us through those coronavirus times. And let's remember, he did it as a man in his 70s when initially coronavirus first emerged. Those people in that age bracket were advised really not to be doing what he was doing. So big respect to him for seeing us through those times, because the cost of relegation would have been catastrophic without match day revenue for a year. But we did need a change. The tactics were negative. You touched on the cups, and that was really the last straw for me. The third round of the FA Cup against Wolves, when we went out without even having a shot on target. I mean, you at least have a go. So I think as well we were regressing, and I think the change with all the out of contract players, it was the right time for us to make the change and have a fresh start all round.
But obviously, I think Roy Hodgson is obviously well respected by Crystal Palace fans for everything he did in this tenure. Obviously, he took over in a very difficult time after Frank de Boer was literally trying to send you guys down to the Championship at the time. He came in. You got some really big results. Obviously, you got that win at the Etihad. I remember you bet Chelsea at Selhurst Park in Roy Hudson's first season. He took over Frank de Boer, which kind of lifted the crowd. So obviously, he did have some good moments. Obviously, you bet United twice at Old Trafford. So, he does leave with keeping Palace comfortably in the Premier League. Never any relegation battle, and also with probably some good games to remember, especially against the bigger teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was, we had some great results against the bigger teams. Beat Man United at Old Trafford a couple of occasions. We beat Man City at the Etihad with that Andros Townsend goal, who's obviously now gone to Everton. So yeah, some great occasions under him, and he did do a good job in keeping us up after the De Boer debacle. So there'll always be an immense respect, but it's the right time for the change. And
Just a very brief on Frank de Boer. Obviously, you had to deal with Frank de Boer for a very short period of time. What did you make of his Euros performance? He completely changed in the Dutch, the traditional 4-3-3 of the Dutch to the back five. They looked okay in the group stage, but then he resigned. And stuff like. What do you make of him as a footballer? Do you think he's lucky to even get these jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was really annoying Palace fans because they were doing quite well in the groups, and everyone was kept going on about how he only was given this amount of time by Palace, and it was just like it was as if he was like proving us wrong or something. But they had quite an easy group, the Dutch, and then as soon as they got to the knockouts, he was exposed, wasn't he, by Ukraine, who England beat comfortably. So no, I don't think much of him. I think he's a very lucky man to have got some of the jobs he's got, and if he leaves pretty quickly into Milan, Palace, now the national job, surely that's him done now.
He's a worse version of Alan Partridge, and that says something. Moving on to.
That's still wrong. I'm quite a fan of Alan Partridge.
Moving on to transfers. So obviously, there's a lot to get through here in terms of there's a lot to get through in transfer wise for Crystal Palace. Yeah. So we'll start off with Mark Gucci. Obviously, you signed in from us in the last couple of days, which Chelsea fans are very, 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 very upset about.
Thanks for that.
He was probably one of the best champion. He was probably one of the best defenders in the Championship. That's Swansea City last year. Obviously Chelsea basically described it as this was too much of a good deal to turn down. It's 18. I know it's 15 million. So I don't know why it says 21 million on there. I don't know if that's add-ons or something, but I know the initial upfront fee is 15 million for Mark Gucci. Obviously, we'll get on to the outs too, but this guy done in the Championship, he's extremely highly rated. You've obviously paid a decent fee for an unproven Premier League defender. I think you've probably done a bit of research on him. So what do you think of him?
Yeah, it's a great signing. Thanks a lot. I think there is a clause though that you get first buyback option. So you've covered yourself. Yeah, listen, this is exactly the sort of signing that we need to be making. We need to bring down the age bracket of the squad. He's had really good reviews from Swansea fans, and now he needs to try and make the step up to the Premier League. But from everything I've heard about him, he's quick and strong and exactly what we need in our back line. It's an aging back line last season. At times we had Scott Dann and Gary Cahill with a combined age of Doc Cotton and Pat Butcher. So it was very, very important that we freshened our defence up, and I couldn't think of a more perfect signing for us really in that position.
Do you think 15 million is a bargain for him? Or do you think, because he's only had one. He's only had one. Actually, he had 2 loans at Swansea. He hasn't played in the Premier League yet. He hasn't played. He only played, I think, 14 minutes for Chelsea under Frank Lampard in the Carabao Cup game. Do you think there's an element of a risk, or it's a risk that you're happy to take?
I think it's a fair price. I think it couldn't be any more because he hasn't played in the Premier League. He's been capped at under 21 England level. Highly sought after player, had a good season in the Championship. I think it's a fair price, if I'm honest.
So you've sent a 19-year-old from Reading, Michael Olise, for 8.37 million, an attacking midfielder. I know you personally. You think that Crystal Palace had too many defensive midfielders. Obviously, Roy Hodgson loved to play 2 CDMs. So a very young attacking midfielder from Red. I don't know very much about him personally, but a young attacking midfielder is probably what you've been moving on about for sure for quite a while.
Listen again. Alongside Mark Gahey, Michael Olise was one of the best players in the Championship last season. So it definitely seems to be our strategy to be picking up the players who are shining in the Championship. And if you look, we did that with Eze the season before, and that worked really well for us. And you look at Eze and you kind of wonder why more clubs didn't come in for him. And hopefully that will be the same with Michael Olise. And I said it, I've been saying it the last few days. I don't really understand why more of the big clubs aren't using this market or the Championship, because you look at someone like Arsenal, they could probably have done with picking up Eze. So I don't understand why, because I feel bad saying it because I was a Palace fan. I supported Palace most of my life, was supporting them in the Championship. But and we had our club exploited when we were in the Championship. But it's a real time to tap into that market because those clubs are desperate for money. A year without revenue. We picked up Michael Olise for 8 million. It's a great signing. It's another great signing for me. And it's those 2 signings we've just talked about have happened in the last week, and it's spun the mood of the fan base. From last season, the negativity that I felt, we're now a very, very positive fan base going into the new season.
Do you make a very good point about the Championship market? Because you got Arsenal paying 50 million for Ben White from Brighton when you could probably get someone better or equivalent to Ben White cheaper in the Championship. Mark Gucci probably being one of them.
I mean, I had some Arsenal fan piping up because I said this on social media yesterday, and I had some Arsenal fan piping up at me. He's the only Arsenal fan I've ever come across who must be defending their recruitment because, literally, yeah. I mean, listen, Ben White for 50 million might be good. Further down the line, you look at how much Harry Maguire cost. If he established himself as an England international, it's really, really hard now in this day and age to come across a commanding centre-back. So he could be a good signing. But what I was saying yesterday in terms of Arsenal is they used to pick up the likes of Ben White before they became a £50 million player. And I guess that's what we're doing with Eze, for example. Next time, we could double what we paid for him. Like I said, I think the Championship is a market that these clubs aren't utilising enough.
That's I completely agree, and I'm in the same boat with Chelsea when it comes to a striker as well. Remy Matthew, 27 from Sun. I guess this is just a Wayne Henderson replacement. I think there's nothing more to that. Wayne Henderson signed for Burnley.
Yeah, not really the most exciting one. I can't really pretend to say I know a lot about him. So he's just coming in as a third choice goalkeeper.
Wayne Henderson signed for Burnley today. In case you didn't see that,
I did. I'm sure him and Sean Dyche will get on very well.
A guy I don't know about this guy, Jacob Muntz, a central midfielder, 22-year-old. Is this an actual official transfer? Because he's got no picture, no fee, and not from where he's from. So
maybe it's a Football Manager signing or something. I hear he's quite a young player, obviously with his age, but I haven't heard too much about him, or he's not played for the first team or anything like that. So yeah, a bit of an odd one, that one.
Another guy coming back from the Polish league, Jarosław Szlak, the centre back. I think this guy's going to be shipped out again somewhere.
Mate, that's a bit of just a common joke amongst Palace fans. Yeah, don't expect him back at anywhere near the first team.
In terms of out, so okay, well, yeah, so
it's going to be a long one.
All right, so we'll go for it. Wayne Henderson, as I said, has signed for Burnley. I take it. What did you make of Wayne Henderson briefly? He was obviously your starting goalkeeper until I can't remember his name. His name's gone in my head. Your starting goalkeeper now.
Vincenzo Guaita.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, he's probably one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the Premier League. Obviously, Wayne Henderson was your goalkeeper before that. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I mean, he had a bad innings really, because he came in and took the position of Julian Speroni, who is a real fan's favourite. He was in the promotion team. So he always got off really to a difficult start with a Palace fan. It was always going to be hard for him to win him over. But to be honest, I never really wanted to. And I think this move kind of summed his character up. If you're 34, you'd want to play some football for your last few years of the career, wouldn't you? But he's just taken the sideways Premier League move to keep his salary up and to sit on the bench to Nick Pope, which kind of sort of summed his character up for me. Not that fast to see him go. Not what I'm pleased. It gets his wages off the bill.
And Josh Townend, I know he did have some quite good spells for Crystal Palace, but I do know towards maybe like last season, Palace fans, from what I've seen, he could be different. We were not too happy with his performance. Some people question his work ethic. Would this be one player you would have kept on, or do you think it was good to let him go?
That was the one I was most split about, Andros Townsend. That was a difficult one to mull over because he's a really good professional. He's a really good support to some of the younger players, the sound bites you get out of the dressing room, and he can play well. He got a really good crossing against Brighton to get us the winner there, which is a really important game for us in last season. But he stopped being the player that took on 3 or 4 players. He'd lost a bit of pace, and probably push come to shove, I'm pleased we've got his wages off the books again, so we can reinvest in younger players. So I wish him all the best though, because great pro and an interesting signing for Everton.
Yeah, it's true, because they're also getting Demarai Gray, too. So obviously, Rafa Benitez trying to get some decent Premier League cheap wingers in the door at Everton. Patrick Fionalt, obviously, who was your starting right back. I believe I could be wrong here. Is it Mitchell? Is he the other right back, or is he a left back?
Left back. So Mitchell was a young left back coming through. Again, most Palace fans are pleased to see Patrick Van Aanholt go. That would be big wages off again, so we can reinvest. Tyrick Mitchell, we want to see coming through. Tyrick Mitchell played a lot of last season. There were times when Van Aanholt played instead of him, which frustrated Palace fans. Positionally, Van Aanholt isn't great. He's a wing back. Did all right for the Holland in the Euros because that's the position he should be. He's a wing back. He's not really a fullback unless you got a coach who really got hold of his defensive side. So again, pleased to get the wages off because of Tyrick Mitchell. We're not worried about that position. We've also got Reece Hanam, a young player coming through. So, and another left back beyond that coming through through our academy. So that's it. Again, for me, you look already, those 3 players, a lot of our wages off the books so we can have this rebuild that we so desperately need to re-energize the team.
Sacco, listen, every time Sacco played against Chelsea, he had a howler. I remember the last 2 games that you guys played against us at the last season. The Sacco had an absolute howler. He's a 31-year-old. He's a Liverpool reject. I think I was some Palace fans would be very happy that this guy really is out the door because he is quite bad.
Listen, I think you say Liverpool reject. I think that's a bit harsh. I think he had a falling out with Klopp because at that time your centre backs weren't great. And there's a bit of like, some people were like, why have they let him go? I think, to be honest with you, I think the biggest problem for Sacco is his injury record. And every time he came back, he'd just get injured again. And he did have one amazing season with us. On his day, his quality, but you are right, he has that error in him. And the combination more pertinently of that error, but also more pertinently his injury record. We could not. Allegedly, he's on near around 100. He was allegedly near on around 100 grand a week. So you can't justify having that with his injury record, and that's going to again clear up a load of money for us to refresh this squad. So I am pleased that he's gone.
Stefan Henderson, do not have a clue who he is. He's supposed to be the fourth choice goalkeeper or something.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
I thought there was some story.
He was a number 3-4 goalie. He's gone. Not much to see.
James McCarthy. Obviously, he was a very big player under Roy Hodgson. He probably set the 4-4-2 role quite well. He's obviously gone now. So, what do you think about that?
I quite liked James McCarthy. I thought he should have been used more, particularly against the bigger teams. By Roy kept with a 4-4-2, and sometimes I think he should have gone with. We definitely should have gone with 3 in the midfield and just had McCarthy sitting and given us more protection. Thinking about the heavy defeat, the 7-1 or the 7-0 it was against Liverpool last season, that there was really a cry for someone like McCarthy just to sit in front of the back four and protect us in those games. But he, like Sacco, his injury record is an issue. He just doesn't get fit enough. So kind of, if we kept him on like a pay-as-you-play deal, I'd been quite happy. So just not really fussed, really, either way, whether he went or left, to be honest.
Klein was a weird signing in the first place, because he obviously had that ACL. He had that ACL injury with Liverpool, and then barely played.
He's been training with us, so he's been pictured training with us. So I don't really know what's happening there. I was a bit, to be honest, I was a bit surprised he did okay for me. He did quite well for me up until Christmas, and then he got an injury, and then the new year, we never really saw him. Joel Ward, to be fair, came in and did very well and kept his place. But I would be quite happy if we re-signed him on again. I think he can still do a job.
Gary Cahill, Gary Cahill did well pass in his short tenure, but I think a 35 now, and Cahill doesn't have the legs, especially for the way Patrick Vieira will want to play. Obviously, Cahill was dropped by Sarri. Because he can play with the ball and can play in the high line. Probably, I think that's how Ferreira wants to play. So
I tell you what, when he first came in, Cahill to Palace, the first season, and I never got the fuss on Gary Cahill. I always saw him and Jagielka playing for England as like a dark point in the England centre back history. But when he came in, he was class, and you could tell his class. And I actually think you got rid of him too early, because I think Lampard could have done with that experience at the back in his first few years.
I do agree, yeah.
But last season, his legs are starting to go. Apparently, we've put an offer in for him, but Rangers have also put an offer in for him. So I think we're offering like a pay-as-you-play, and he's holding out for a little bit more. But I'm definitely pleased he came to us, and that, he got the highlight of his career in at the end by joining Palace.
Scott Dan, same boat as Gary Cahill. I don't know much. I don't know what you think about him.
No, I really probably the one I'm most sad about, because he was part of the team that went to an FA Cup final. He sort of embodied the spirit of that team, but like Cahill, his legs were going, and it was time to let him go. But probably the saddest departure from the fans' point of view.
And then Connor Wickham.
Again, another really. This is the thing. Is that is that a lot of the other fans have been saying Palace are in crisis, they've got all these players out of contract, but we knew that this was a really good opportunity for us, that this was positive if we then invested well, which we seem to be doing with our first 2 signings. Connor Wickham was allegedly, if you believe the rumours, on near around 80-90 grand a week. And a player again who gets fit and then gets injured. So it's sad for him because you look at his age; he's 28. He should have done so much more in football, but he just can't seem to avoid these injuries. And to be honest, delighted to get another player off the books. And you look at those players on that list, the amount of wages we've cleared up to rebuild and reinvest and bring down the age of the squad, re-energize the team, which from speaking to me last year felt like we needed to do. I just think the out is a big plus for us, not the crisis that the media are making it out to be. Those on the inside know that this is a perfect opportunity. And to be fair to Roy Hodgson, he probably had the most limited transfer budget of any manager since we've been back in the Premier League, because he was hamstrung by the likes of Saka on these big wages, and we're sort of free now to rebuild the squad and rebuild the team.
And just to that point too, if you look at the average age of departures, 30.5. That's like in terms of all these players are leaving are quite old, and then your total market value of these departures is 28 million. That's a lot of money to Crystal Palace. It takes into wages and also that's. I think that backs up your point. And in terms of any more players coming in, what's the reports to add to your free current silence? What else do you think?
So we've been linked with Lookman, another wide player. I think we do need another option out wide, especially with Eze. Even though I think Eze should be a central player, but I think eventually when Eze is back from injury, him, Elise, and Saha will sort of rotate between positions. But I do think we need another wide player. So Lookman, someone I'd like us to have a look at. We've been linked with Arsenal's Nketiah. I do think we need another type of striker to Benteke. Delighted Benteke to resign. But the big one for me is I think we need two central midfielders. We've been linked with Conor Gallagher on loan from Chelsea and Maitland-Niles from Arsenal. And I think where we really struggle as a team, and last season why we became so dire to watch over like a 1.5 year period, is we never really replaced Yohan Cabaye. You're not going to replace a special player like Yohan Cabaye, but we've lacked a midfielder with an eye for a pass. We've got industrial midfielders like Luka Milivojevic, James McArthur, but we've not got someone who can open up a team with one intelligent ball that splits the team open. Or if we are going to be a counter-attacking team, which we've basically been since we've been back in the Premier League, you need a player who's suddenly going to switch us from defence to attack with that ball. We haven't had that ball player. And I think Conor Gallagher could be a player who could be that player. And allegedly, he actually had a medical with us to come on loan last year and then probably made the wrong move and went for Batshuayi, although I think Batshuayi got a hard deal from Hodgson last season. But definitely interesting Conor Gallagher on loan from you lot. And Maitland-Niles would bring a bit of energy into our central midfield as well. But, I mean, will we only get one central midfielder? I think we need to get two, personally.
Conor Gallagher to Crystal Palace, I'll be old for that deal. I think him and Billy Gilmore, obviously Gilmore's went to Norwich on loan. He'll be in the Premier League next season. Gallagher sacked the team.
It's the one I wanted on loan. I think that must be because we didn't have our manager in place, because that is a fantastic signing from Norwich.
I think Conor Gallagher and I think they'll do things. I thought Gallagher did very well in the Premier League last season.
Yeah.
And West Brom, and obviously a very dire Sam Allardyce team. So before we go off this pitch, I have to ask you obviously about Patrick Vieira replacing Roy Hodgson. Obviously, it was a very out of the blue managerial sign. Obviously, you were initially linked to Frank Lampard and Eddie Howe, and then it looks like we were getting Lucien Favre, the former Dortmund manager. Then he did a random U-turn. So you're stuck with Patrick Vieira, who did not particularly do well at Nice, but he does want to play an open attacking style. So, what would you make of it?
I'm indifferent. I don't think you can be overwhelmingly positive, because there's nothing in his very, very short managerial career to be overwhelmingly positive about. I'm not negative, because there's nothing in his managerial career to be overwhelmingly negative about. First thing I'd say, I think he interviewed well. I think we spoke to, if you believe the rumours, we spoke to a lot of people. Frank Lampard rumoured to be one of them. One of the rumours is that Lampard didn't interview well. The other rumour is that Lampard then pulled out and said he didn't want the job. I think that he fits the ethos of the club. Our under-18s and under-23s did extremely well last season. We've just moved to Category A Academy. The building's nearly finished. We've got some absolutely banging players that I think you'll start seeing coming through this season. Some Wilfried Zaha vibes in our academy. And his time at Man City's academy fits in well with that. He did well at New York City, but no disrespect to the MLS, it doesn't transfer to the Premier League. And then Nice is mixed. First season, not too bad. There was a lot of turmoil at the club in his time there. I was reading into it. I think the sporting director left because he didn't like the chairman. Then a new owner came in, and the sporting director, that Vieira, was happy to be working alongside, returned. But second season, he qualified for the Europa League. And then third season, it did go wrong. The sound bites are that he didn't really have a fixed system, or the players were a bit confused about some of his messages, which is a bit alarming because that's the sort of thing that happened with De Boer. He sort of sent out mixed messages. But I think what's good is that Vieira has indicated that he's learned from that experience. He said that Arsene Wenger, obviously a mentor to him, said you're not a manager until you're sacked. He's learned lessons. He's ready to apply those lessons. So as a fan base, we always get behind our players and manager. We're definitely ready to get behind him. It is probably the most interesting one for going into the season. I don't think anyone really can predict how this one's going to turn out.
Well, we'll come on towards your expectations, or afterwards. So obviously, just briefly into the preseason. Obviously, you had your first preseason game there. Yeah, you bet Walsall 1-0.
It's not conceded all season.
Google didn't have the team. Didn't have the lineup there on it. Did he play most of the kids? The first team players get much of a chance?
First half he played 13 players, and then the second 45 he played the academy boys. So bit of both. So it was 1-0 at half time. Saha got the goal, great goal, and then the academy boys came on and did themselves proud, as I said, with a clean sheet. So a bit of both, a bit of embedding, and a bit of him getting to look at the first team.
What formation do you think he's going to go with next season? Like, what formation do you think he's going to try out here in pre-season?
This is the thing. That reading into his time at Nice, there wasn't one, and that's sort of where some of the players were saying we didn't really know. We didn't have a fixed system. It got a bit confusing. I don't know. I think that's good for us that he mixes between different systems, and that's coming out from the player interviews as well, that they like that, because we were so fixed under Roy Hodgson that was my biggest gripe with him. I didn't mind his 4-4-2 in certain games, but then he never would switch to like a 4-2-3-1. I think there's going to be a lot of transition between the positions. So like I was saying, I think once everyone's fit, I could see him having Saha, Lise and Eze behind Benteke, but they're not fixed in on the left or right. They're sort of rotating positions. I don't know. It's hard to call because at Nice he didn't have a preferred system.
Obviously, your two friends are away to Ipswich on the 24th of July, and then home to Charlton on the 27th, and then the 31st. If anyone away, all championship teams, 2 away, 1 at home.
For our Premier League now, aren't they? This is weird.
I thought that was a Premier League game. Sorry. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, it's a weird friendly, that one, because they're now in the Premier League. But I think obviously with coronavirus, your teams are trying to stay within England, and obviously playing another Premier League team gives you a chance to sort of
obviously with your Freedom Day obviously taking place in England yesterday, do you think you'll take the trip to any of these away games or attend any of the 2 home ones?
Well, technically we're meant to. I think the home ones will be all right. I think to attend. I think listen, I don't want to get sort of into the politics of it all, but I think people recognise that mental health is important after being the lockdown for so long. So I think people underestimate how good it is for your mental health to go to a football game. It helps you switch off for 90 minutes. And I think if it can be done in a safe way, with the right protocols, I think I can see, obviously, it being outside and transmission being lower outside. If they can manage going through the turnstiles and the concourse safely, then I think I'm optimistic that definitely there'll be fans in the stadiums for much of the season. And
obviously, your first game is away to Stamford Bridge, which I think
nice easy start.
I'm sure me and you'll do a nice wee preview closer to the time for that. So with next season, how are you feeling about it? As you said, you know, in terms of your style, your philosophy, it's going to be more attacking. You know, Patrick Vieira says he wants to be open, he wants the attack. He's got the young players, he's got the legs to do it, but you still have a core of those experienced players from Roy Hodgson. I've said this to everyone. You may see it differently as an actual Palace fan. It is a gamble what's happening. You know, bringing in Patrick Vieira, bringing these young players, there is a gamble. Like, you know, it could go sour extremely quick. This positive feeling could turn negative very quickly. But what's your initial gut feeling about what is to come in the season ahead?
I think we'll finish somewhere between 11th and 15th. I think it's going to be an embedding season for Vieira, an embedding period for all these new players that we're getting in and the young players that we're getting in. But I think we've definitely got enough to stay away from the danger. We've got Vincenzo Guaita, a very good goalkeeper. We've re-signed Benteke. Obviously, there's always the question mark over Wilfried Zaha, but if he stays, then I won't be worried at all about going down. I don't think we do anything incredible in terms of the league this season because I think it's too soon for the players. With Eze out as well until the new year, I think Vieira will embed and will need to embed. Where I'm looking for really is can we go on a bit of a cup run? Because like I said earlier, the cup runs were a bit frustrating under Roy, and can we have a bit of more of a go there?
So would your ideal scenario then be come up to Christmas, you're mid-table, you're a good distance away from the relegation zone, and then Pep Vieira just goes all out for the FA Cup? Would that be your probably more ideal scenario then?
I'd rather finish 16th than 11th and win and get to a cup final than finish 11th, because for me, football's about memories, and going to Wembley, I mean, it's in the finals with my dad and my brother, just two things you'll never forget as Palace fan, because it's so rare. So I'd rather do that. But there are Palace fans who'd rather the security. I think that, I don't think, I think this season really is more about us progressing the style, which is easier said than done. Vieira's indicated he wants us to get us more on a front foot, create more chances, at the same time keeping that mental core strength of ours. Finding that balance has been hard to find since we got promoted. Pardew possibly found it for about a year, and then defensively it all went wrong. So he's got a big job in changing the ethos and style, and I think it'd be more about that, keeping us secure in a secure league position between 11th and 15th, which we will. Can we ever go at the cups? You're always sort of relying on a bit of some things to go well there, and the draw and the games themselves. So that will be it for me.
If things did turn really bad for Patrick Vieira next season, right? Say he had a very similar start to Frank de Boer, do you think Palace will learn? Do you think he would be given that time, or do you think if Palace think that there was immediate danger to going down, that Vieira would be sacked, without delay?
I think he'll get more time. I think there's much more positive vibes coming out of the training ground than De Boer. De Boer upset a lot of people very early on in the way he was, and there was rumours that he did that in Milan as well. All the players, I know the players have to, but they are speaking positively about Vieira. They seem to be enjoying the training camps, whereas it's pretty well documented that a lot of the players didn't enjoy De Boer's training. So I think he will get more time, but the opening fixtures are tough. The game that I'd be looking at if I'm Patrick Vieira is our second game. No disrespect to Brentford, at home. If he can get a win there, then he just relaxes everything. He relaxes the players, the fans, himself, and he has a bit more time to embed his philosophy and his styles. If you don't get the win there, then it could drag 4 or 5 games, and then people start talking, the pressure starts mounting. And when that's happening, it's harder to implement a new style. You sort of have to go back a bit into sort of siege mentality to try and get a win from somewhere. So that second game against Brentford, it really is the big one on the 21st of August.
Yeah, I can see what you. I'll just give it a thought there so I can see the screen. But I do see what you mean now. Obviously you're away to Stamford Bridge, you're away to the Champions League holders, then you're on Brentford, and you've got a West Ham team that's obviously very well informed, but they haven't strengthened at all this window. Then you're home to Spurs, and then away to Liverpool, and then you've got your derby game against Brighton, then you've got Leicester, then you've got Arsenal. So
exactly.
That's
so I think don't get me wrong. There's games in there I think we can get results from.
Spurs.
I look at that one. I think obviously you don't know what's happening with Harry Kane, a new era there. West Ham away. I think they're actually a club who probably benefited from no fans because they sometimes put unrealistic pressure on their players, and that pressure might be even more considering the good season they had last season, and also doesn't look like they're going to have Lingard. So could we nick something there, even a point? So I think there are other games other than Brentford where we can pick up points, but I just think realistically, okay, let's say we lose to you on the opening day, to be expected. Just get the win against Brentford would just be massive. And I know it sounds silly on the second game, but it just would relax everyone. So that's the one fixture that's really popping out to me as fundamental for Vieira in those opening games.
And as you know, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I do want to ask all these guys to come on just very briefly from Chelsea. I ask everyone the same 3 questions. It's just nice to hear other different fans' opinions on Chelsea, and it's good. It does well for the series and does well for me speaking to other people. Obviously Chelsea are champion. Obviously Chelsea won the Champions League. Or Champions League holders going into this and going into the season. Big issues with striker. Obviously, we are really struggling. Haaland ain't happening. Lukaku too far fetched. Do you think Chelsea will be fighting for the title next year, or do you think the missing of the number 9 is going to put them down into a top 4 struggle?
Yeah, I think you need a striker. And would it be Harry Kane? Could you go for Harry Kane? Then he could stay in London. Would he leave Tottenham for Chelsea? I think you need to go for Kane and Haaland.
Haaland's going to be a lot of money, though. I don't think we'll get him.
I think you'll probably wait. I don't think you will get. I think you'll probably potentially will have to wait for Haaland next season, unless Abramovich is prepared to blow everyone out of the water.
That leaves Tammy Abraham as the only registered striker at Chelsea, and he wasn't trusted by Thomas Tuchel last season. He was left out of the match.
It's very difficult to predict things at the moment until you see all the sort of top 4s ins. Because if City got Grealish and Kane, I'd be sitting there saying, "Look, City have done it." Can United pull something out of the bag? What Liverpool going to do? So can you pull something out of the bag? It's very hard to sit here and talk. I think we'll have to assess it. I think it'll be very, very hard for you to get the standard striker that you need in.
We'll probably be stuck with a Danny Ings or Chris Wood. You just have to go to somewhere in the Championship or the Premier League or the Bundesliga and just pick up a striker who does score goals. He's not someone you would.
Can you survive without? I mean, Liverpool won the league with Firmino, who's not a prolific goal scorer. So you just use a different way of playing. So and Thomas Tuchel is very good tactically. So you could do it.
No, you would have to get time.
Second season in the Premier League. Sometimes these players just click in their second season. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's. But having said that, ideally you get the standard striker you want, but that will be hard.
Well, Tammy Abraham, wasn't particularly liked by Tuchel last season. He barely made the squad, so Tuchel would have to really get him drilled in pre-season. If he was the only one, then you would. But then you're asking Werner and Havertz to really step up on the goals because goals were a big issue for us last year. The whole season is one reason why Lampard got sacked, because the amount of goals we were scoring was ridiculously bad. It's just Tuchel had a good defense that we got away with not particularly scored a lot of goals. So.
Lampard as well. I mean, obviously it was the right decision, but I did think Lampard was a bit unlucky.
I think he was unfairly sacked at the time. I think the time of the sacking was wrong, but
I mean, you can't argue with it.
You can't argue with it. You can't test it. We won the Champions League and we go to an FA Cup final. But my final point about Chelsea then is, do you think Chelsea? Do you think Chelsea are growing or do you think Chelsea have the potential to be the next Manchester City with all these extremely young players? Abramovich, who spends the money in the right areas at the right time. Do you think City are slowly coming to the end of their time? A lot of players are starting to leave. Bernardo Silva wants out, Eric Laporte wants out, Cancelo wants out, their Guerrero is gone. So their tenure of that big squad and Pep Guardiola's era is coming to an end in the next couple of next seasons. Do you think if Thomas Tuchel does well this season, the young players they have, that Chelsea could potentially be the next Manchester City in terms of a really big squad and dominate English football again?
I'm not so sure. I'm not so convinced City will be over for City. You remember they got people like Phil Foden coming through. I think, and they'll always have the money to reinvest. So if they brought Grealish and Kane in, I think you start a bit of a new era for City. I think for you, I think the maybe what some of your fans have been saying is some of these young players you're not using. For example, selling us Mark Guehi. I mean, like, so are you utilizing your youth system? You seem to sometimes use your youth system as a bit of a cash cow, as opposed to bringing through young players. And some football people would say that's an awful philosophy, but you can't argue with it because it works for you. You've just won the Champions League. So I think there is very much potential in your team. I think Kai Havertz will have a much better second season. He's one of those players more embedded in the Premier League. I think, I honestly, for someone who's just been questioning the values of football and stuff, but I do think it will come down to the transfer market. You can't get away from that. Will you get Haaland? Will Man City get Kane? I think those things swing it.
Just to your point about our loans, I've been telling everyone this when the Chelsea players turned up for pre-season last Saturday, 33 players turned up and only 7 of them were the first team players.
Yeah, well, no, apparently some of the loan players said under like Mourinho and stuff, they used to have separate training for the loan players who like going out. In they come, out they go.
When the first team players come back, and I know a fair few of them are meeting the squad in Dublin today, that normally what happens that the loan army literally have their own loan. It literally is called the Loan Chelsea Squad Friendlies. When a registered manager who's not even a manager at the club comes in and manages the loan team just for friendlies.
Harry Redknapp hit on that.
So
you could do like an ITV spin-off documentary from his one with the older players. Just get Harry Redknapp in.
So you're all right. No, but before the Euro players come back, 33 players turned up, and you're all right. They do eventually start off when all the first team players come back. Because always took over managing like 50 players, which is just not doable. So my final question to you, and I like to ask this question at the very end, just to kind of throw cat on the pigeons. Who do you think will be the first manager sacked next season?
Oh my, good question.
By the way, I think you're my 6th person. Only one person said Patrick Vieira so far. Just thought you'd like to know that.
I mean, he would be a good candidate because of it, looking at our fixtures. But I do think we'll put faith in him. So, first manager sacked. That's a really good question. Arteta.
Arteta? You're the first one. What are you talking about? 2 months in Christmas?
I'm surprised they've kept them. I never understood how he got the job in the first place. It's the Pep's Cones man. He did win the FA Cup, but I think I was surprised he got the job in the first place. It's like appointing. So I'm from the era of football when Steve McLaren and Brian Kidd got promoted as Alex Ferguson number 2 to like the Blackburn and Middlesbrough jobs. It's like the equivalent of that, but he's got less experience, and he was awful last season. The style of football was like he was like Roy Hodgson's prodigy. Do you remember when he took Aubameyang off when they needed a goal to get to the Europa League final?
He brought on Thomas Partey.
In-game management and negativity. Nah, I'm gonna say Arteta.
They had a terrible year. They lost their Real team over 2 legs too, and barely created anything.
I mean, Palace, they pulled away from us in the end. They finished 8th, we finished 14th, but we were like a couple of positions below them for most of the season.
And they've started pre-season horribly wrong too. You know they got outplayed by Hibernian with a lot of senior players playing in that game, and then Rangers. They struggled against Rangers. So it's a fair point. I've got Dean Smith. As my first manager. I think if they lose Jack Grealish, and with how bad they are defensively normally under Dean Smith, I think Dean Smith compared to where they finished last season, I think
not a bad shout. It's not a bad shout.
I think you know Chris Ellis, don't you, from Fellow Together? Well, he used to be Fellow Together. I think you know him.
No.
It must be Neil then, but he's a very big Aston Villa fan. Used to do a lot of Aston Villa content. He thinks Dean Smith's walking on a tightrope if they start badly next season, and I think they will. So,
I think they slumped, didn't they? They fell away.
Quite badly,
a lot of money being pumped in there. So, I mean, I think he's done a good job. I mean, you can't really argue with what he's done for them, but yeah, that's another potential one. Him, Arteta, yeah, who knows? Who knows?
It will be interesting. There's so much coming into next season, but that does bring the end of this episode of the Trip Ahead with Crystal Palace. Ali, thank you very much for coming on. Said you'll probably be on the channel, a couple of weeks time for our Chelsea and Crystal Palace preview. If you want to do that,
I'm happy to come on. Is that how close it is to the season?
3 weeks, yeah.
I'm not ready. I'm still on a Euros hangover. But yeah, I'll come on. We'll have a chat about how we've got your young centre back, Mark Guehi.
And probably a young centre midfielder. At least he'll be on loan anyway.
He won't be able to play, will he, Gallagher? If we do get him in that opening game. So yeah.
But like I said, thank you very much for taking your time to come on. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good to hear, from an actual Crystal Palace side of things. Because from the outside looking in, it's very interesting what's going on. Obviously, every time you sign someone, you're like the next episode of Crystal Palace are doomed, and obviously,
yeah. No, I mean the media is just ridiculous. And in the inside, we knew all the players coming out of contract was good. So it's been funny to watch. That's why I like doing podcasts, is because when you actually speak to the fans, you really get to know what's going on at a club. Because the media just look at what's on the surface and don't dig. So yeah, no, much more positive. But like you've said, it is a really intriguing one with Patrick Vieira.
If anyone's interested in checking Ali's content out, which for throughout the season, his name is literally there. All links will also be in the description below if you don't want to be bothered typing all of that. His YouTube and Twitter will be Twitter and YouTube will be in the description. Though I said he'll be uploading regular content, and if you want Crystal Palace first class knowledge, it's all there.
Yeah, I'll be doing some stuff around the Chelsea game. So yeah, please press the subscribe on, click the link and subscribe. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'll probably see you in a few weeks then.
Yes, absolutely. So, and everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. The next episode out is Cardiff City with NWN, Nathan Morgan from my podcast. He'll be coming to talk about Cardiff, and then after that, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be talking about Spurs, which obviously is a very interesting one as well. So keep your eyes out. Thank you for watching, and see you later.
Why do you let us hurt one another just for the dollar? Did you lose your heart in the darkness deep in your pocket? No, I don't care of the price I pay. I don't wanna spend my life that way. Tell me, is the pain that you're causing worth what you profit?
Yeah, I know that money don't buy happiness, but buys you more material shit. And reworking how I think and what it means to be rich. I used to think it meant to flex, so Rolex on my wrist. Feels bad to take more than you give. Lately hate how we live. I never wanna become the things that I hate. With a man in the mirror with laugh and spit in my face and tell me that the money is maybe another fake. I've been drowning in my mind and my money's been adding weight. Oh Lord, please save me. I should've known that something man-made couldn't make me. I say I'm making music, or is music what creates me? I never have an answer, same question every day. See, when we pass on, all our things are passed on to the next. Everything we didn't do is everything we regret. Every day we fucking work for this worthless check. If you're not happy, you're forever in debt. You're forever in debt.